She came to her parents' anniversary at Le Bernardin with a gift worth $5,000. Only to hear, "Take this beggar out." And then she showed them what she was worth. Marina Kornilova stood in front of the mirror in the restroom of Le Bernardin. And her own reflection seemed alien to her. The dress from Diane von Furstenberg sat perfectly. The salon hairdo held perfectly. But the mascara had treacherously run down her cheeks, leaving black streaks on the carefully drawn contour. In her hands, she was still clutching the box with the $4.950 Rolex watch in a velvet case. "Excuse me, madam." The security guard took her by the elbow almost tenderly. With that professional delicacy they teach in expensive establishments. "Your name was removed from the guest list last night. We are very sorry. Please." Mother's words still rang in her ears. "Take this beggar out." The beggar, after $16,500 for their golden wedding. After 10 years of financial support for utilities, Mike's business ideas and Irene's trips to Cancun. The elevator descended slowly. And her reflection in the mirrored walls multiplied, a woman in a dress for $3. Sanbei. With smudged makeup and shaking hands. The screen in the corner was broadcasting what was happening in the dining room. Mother was hugging Mike. Father was raising his glass. Irene was cheerfully telling her friends something. A family holiday. Without her. In the lobby. The festive couples slid their glances over her figure. Curiosity mixed with awkwardness. The doorman held the door. And the New York February air hit her face with a scorching cold. "To Midtown. Please." She squeezed out. Falling into the back seat of the Uber. The driver nodded without asking anything. His understanding glance flashed in the rearview mirror. He had seen people like her. With smudged mascara and expensive dresses. Driving away from someone else's happiness. Manhattan floated past the window in blurred lights. She clutched the box with the watch to herself. As if it were the last anchor holding her to reality. 34 years old. A successful investment analyst. Her own consulting agency. Clients from the Upper East Side. And a beggar. In her head. Like a broken record. Scraps of conversation were spinning. "And who are you? You are not our daughter. You are always alone. Marina. We have our own people here. Our own, so she is a stranger. She has always been a stranger." Memory helpfully threw up pictures from childhood. Here she is. 9 years old. With a certificate for first place at the district math competition. "Sit with your homework," says her father. Without even looking at the award. Mike needs to practice his multiplication tables. Here is graduation from NYU Stern. Summa cum laude. Cap and gown. A happy smile for no one. The parents did not come. Mike was in the middle of finals. He was worried. Irene had a dance recital. It was still hanging over the sofa in her parents' apartment, Irene's kindergarten drawing. A crooked house with a sun. And her diplomas were lying around somewhere in the closet. Mike burned down the garage at 14. His mother just giggled. Well? Boys will be boys. Marina was already working as a tutor at 15 to buy herself winter boots. The average invisible woman. The one who can handle it herself. And she handled it, 14 hours a day at Goldman Sachs. Venture investments. Tech startups. Endless presentations and negotiations. At 30. Her own agency. Clients who trusted her with millions. The success she built herself without anyone's help. And then the calls started. Venmo me some money for utilities. Dad's social security is being delayed. They've been holding it up for 5 years. Marina. I have an idea for a self-service car wash. But you know business. Mike's car wash went bust after 3 months. Then there was a barbershop. Then an e-commerce site with Chinese junk. We're flying to Cancun with the girls. Help us out. Irene didn't even say thank you. But she gave. Always gave. Because they were family. The Uber got stuck in traffic on the West Side Highway. She took out her iPhone. 20 missed calls from Natasha. Her best friend thought that Marina was dancing at her parents' golden wedding. Do you think you need anyone other than your family? Your mother's voice at 11:00 p.m. after another Zelle transfer. Money is not love. But what is love? It's when all your relatives go to the Hamptons for Memorial Day weekend. And you find out about it from Irene's Instagram stories. Oh, Marina. You're always busy. And then my mother called with tenderness in her voice for the first time in many years. Daughter. Your dad and I have an anniversary. We dream of celebrating at Les Bernardin. Can you help? And fool Marina fell for it. She made a deposit of $17. Lupe. She should have been wary when she was avoided in the family WhatsApp group with the planners. When questions were answered with emojis. When Irene wrote in surprise, you'll be there too, but she bought a dress. Got her hair done. Booked a makeup artist. Chose a gift. A Swiss watch. A pair. And arrived at the restaurant with a smile. Sorry. Your name is not on the guest list. The manager looked with professional sympathy. Your parents asked to remove you last night. Remove you like a mistake. Like a typo. Through the glass doors, she saw Mike in a tuxedo. He looked away. Irene pretended to talk on the phone. We thought you weren't coming. Mother didn't even leave the private dining room. She spoke through the half-open door. It was a family holiday after all. Family. Without her. And when she handed over the box with the watch, Mother turned to the waiter. Please take this away. Take this away. Take her away. Take this beggar out. The Uber turned towards Midtown. A tower of glass and concrete. Her real home. An apartment on the 32nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Designer renovation. No one from the family had ever visited her. Why would we need to go to those concrete boxes of yours? The mother waved her off. In the underground parking, Marina couldn't get out of the car. Her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't unlock her phone. Something snapped in her chest. And a hoarse, animalistic cry burst from her throat. All the years of silence. All the swallowed grievances. You'll cope with everything yourself. All of this was bursting out in the howl of a wounded beast. The phone vibrated. Natasha. How are you? Are you dancing? A cheerful voice of a friend. Tell me how everyone is dressed up. They threw me out. The words scratched my throat. I'm not a daughter. Silence. Then where are you? In the car. In the parking garage. Don't move. Coming over. 20 minutes. And Natasha was already knocking on the window. She rushed to hug me. Without saying a word. She led me upstairs. Like a child. In the apartment. Marina collapsed on the sofa. Words flowed in a stream about the guest list. About security. About the beggar. Natasha silently poured red wine. Heated up Thai takeout. Helped take off a dress for $3. Sanbei. This is not just toxicity. She said finally. This is financial abuse. You understand. You are a victim. Victim. Marina never thought of herself in such categories. She is strong. Successful. Copes. I have a spreadsheet. She suddenly remembered. Excel. I always wrote down my expenses. Just in case. The MacBook was lying on the table. The file, Family Expenses, opened with the first click. Lines. Dates. Amounts. 10 years of Venmo transfers. Purchases. Payments. At the bottom in the total cell, the figure $168. 817 was glowing. 168美元. 817. Marina caught her breath. This was a down payment on a Manhattan apartment. This was a secure retirement fund. This was a business from scratch. A yacht. Around the world trip. It was a whole life that she gave to those who called her a beggar. She began to look through the lines. Tutors for Irene's children. $1. 320 a month. New furniture for the parents' bedroom. $4. Sube. Mike's barbershop, Nyotu. Tibet. Parents' vacation in Napa Valley. $8. Babe. Renovation of her parents' apartment. $35. Lambe. Each line was a piece of her life. H number. An unlived trip. An unbought dream. Put aside for later. She fed them all. Clothed them. Entertained them. Solved their problems. And what did she get in return? Bring out this beggar. The family consumed her life through endless Venmo requests. And she allowed it because she thought that was love. It turned out that love is Irene's crooked house above the sofa. These are Mike's pranks that parents excuse with a smile. This is a place at the festive table for their own. And she is a stranger. Has always been a stranger. Just an ATM that gives out the right amount on time. About $170. Ling ling ling. That's how much she invested in them over 10 years. And not a penny of love in return. Marina woke up at 7:00 am from the vibration of her phone. The screen was lit up with notifications. Chase's banking app helpfully showed the latest transactions on her black card, which the whole family had access to with automatic debits. She had forgotten to close the joint account, having opened it many years ago. 3 yuan. 080 extra for the banquet at Le Bernardin. 1 yuan. 540 bars tab to continue the evening. $594 cake from Dominique Ansel. They celebrated with her money even after they threw her out the door. Natasha slept on the couch, covered with a throw blanket. Marina quietly walked into the kitchen, turned on the Nespresso machine. In her head, she still heard, "Take this beggar out." But now the pain was mixed with cold clarity. She opened Instagram. The first thing she saw was a photo of that very cake on her mother's page. 50 years of love. Thank fate for my family. Not a word about who paid for this magnificence. She scrolled further. The Mediterranean cruise she gave her parents for last Christmas was captioned as a surprise from our beloved son Mike. Photos from Cancun, where Irene went with her friends on her money. Thanks to my sister for the idea. For the idea, not for $1. 320. Do you watch their stories? Natasha was standing in the doorway, disheveled. Come on. This is masochism. Do you know what's funniest? Marina turned the screen towards her. Their love. Their status. Their close-knit family. All this exists at my expense. I'm not their daughter. But I am their sponsor. Natasha poured herself some coffee and sat down opposite her. So what now? Marina closed Instagram and looked her friend in the eyes. I'm not their ATM anymore. That's it. For the first time in years, she woke up without the usual heaviness in her chest. Without the feeling that she owed something. She texted her assistant Elena. Good morning. We need a summary of all family expenses for the last year, and the contacts of our attorney. The answer came in 10 minutes. Already compiling. Are you okay? Better than ever. By lunchtime. Elena sent a new spreadsheet. Marina studied the figures with surgical precision. 5 yuan. 500, for the banquet has already been paid. 1 yuan. 210 cruise for the parents. Departure date is in a month. 4 yuan. 620 is Irene's trip to Cancun with her family. Departure in 2 weeks. 1 yuan. 540 is Mike's next loan for renting premises for a new business. 5 yuan. 720 is extending her parents' membership in a country club. 29 yuan. 590 has not yet been spent. But it is already planned for her money. The lawyer called back in an hour. Marina. I've studied the situation. What has already been spent, alas, cannot be returned without receipts and contracts. But what has not yet been paid can be cancelled. Loans without documentation are legally null and void. That is, everything was based on trust. That's right. Not a single paper. Not a single loan agreement. From a legal point of view, you gave gifts. Gifts. 170 yuan. 000 is a gift to those who called her a beggar. Thank you. I will act. Elena warned me right away. Marina. They will go crazy. This is going to be a storm. Let me not live in this delirium any longer. For the next 2 hours, she methodically compiled a financial register for each family member by year with interest. As if they were bank loans. With the calculation of lost profits, this money could work. Bring in profit. The result was staggering. 168 yuan. 300 direct expenses. 38 yuan. 500 potential return on investment. 206 yuan. 800, the price of her family. You could buy a house in the Hamptons. Elena said quietly. Studying the figures. Or start a foundation. I still can. But first I need to stop the bleeding. Cancellation letters were drafted and sent that same day. Cruise cancelled. Cancun cancelled. Country club cancelled. Mike's bank transfer blocked. Are you ready for their reaction? Elena looked worried. Marina closed her laptop. Looked at the sunset outside the midtown windows. Done. Monday morning began with black coffee and icy determination. In her head again sounded, take this beggar out. But now these words did not hurt. But gave strength. The first call to Le Bernardin. Good afternoon. This is Marina Kornilova. I paid for the banquet on Saturday. Yes. Of course. I remember you. How can I help? I do not demand a refund of the deposit. But I want to cancel the entire additional order for $4. 620. Send the bill to my parents. And transfer the deposit to St. Jude Children's Hospital. Anonymously. I understand. We will do everything as you ask. Cruise. Dialing the travel agency number. Canceling booking in Kornilova name. But departure is in a month. We'll have to pay penalty fee. I know. 165 penalty. yuan. 045 refund. Transfer to my account. Will notify parents myself. Cancun. Family tour for Irene. Canceling. Yes. Completely. No. Changed my mind. Deduct penalty from tour cost. Thinks a second. Send the nephews $55 each for spending money. They are not guilty of anything. Credit to Mike. Call to Chase. I'm blocking the transfer for $1. 540. Yes. This is my final decision. Send confirmation. The country club does not renew the Kornilovs' membership. No. This is their concern. Not mine. By evening, everything was done. There were 34 missed calls on the phone. She turned on voicemail. From today, I do not finance family members. All obligations are terminated. The joint account is closed and the cards are blocked. For a week. Silence was needed like air. In the evening, Natasha came. Wine. A view of the city lights. An honest conversation. How are you free? And yes. It hurts. I was never their daughter. Only a bank. Natasha raised her glass. Then to your Independence Day. At night. The phone was buzzing with text messages. She turned off notifications. But the screen kept flashing. In the morning. She read. Mike, you killed my business. Bitch. Irene, the children are crying. They dreamed of the beach. Father, you are a traitor. After everything we have done for you. After everything they have done for her. At 70 inches the morning. The intercom rang as if the building was on fire. On the video screen was the whole family mother. Father. Irene with the children. Mike. In a luxury residential building with doorman service. Zooch, visitors were rare. The concierge showed them how to get to Marina's apartment. She opened the door. They pushed in without waiting for an invitation. The intervention committee stood in a semicircle in the foyer. Their faces twisted with anger. Are you completely crazy? Irene began. You deprived my children of vacation. We are now a laughingstock. The mother threw up her hands. I had to call everyone and explain that my daughter had freaked out. I leased the space. Took on commitments. Mike pointed his finger at her. You are ruining my business. The father was silent. Stared. Then barked. Return everything immediately. Fix it. We raised you. By the way. Marina looked at them calmly. At her mother, in a fur coat bought with her money. At her father in expensive glasses, that she had given him for his last birthday. At Irene's children in expensive clothes paid for by their beloved aunt. No. One word. And silence fell in the foyer. And then erupted. Hysterical, we'll sue you, we raised you. Educated you. You owe us for life. Ungrateful father shouted down everyone. If you don't change your mind now. You're no longer our daughter. Marina grinned. And when was I ever your daughter? She went into the living room. They followed. She took out her MacBook and turned the screen. 168美元. 300 spent over the last 10 years. 29美元. 590 minus penalties cancelled yesterday. Every line. Date. Amount. Recipient. Purpose. These are not emotions. These are facts. You are taking things out of context. Irene squealed. We did not mean to offend you. Mother wrung her hands. It was stress. All families go through difficulties. Added the father. Mom. Have you forgotten what you told me when I came to your anniversary? Marina's voice sounded clear. Sober and merciless. Your speech sounded crystal clear. Take this beggar out. An icy silence fell over the apartment. Irene and Mike turned away. Mother spoke quietly. It was said in the heat of the moment. Marina looked at her mother. At her trembling hands. At the tears ready to spill. Once these tears made her run to the bank. Transfer money. Take on other people's problems. Now there was only fatigue. From this day on. No transfers. Loans. Surprises. Her voice sounded even. Emotionless. Irene. Mike. You can earn and provide for yourself and your family. Father hissed like an angry cat. Will you regret it? No? I have self-respect now. It is more precious than yours. Mother sobbed. Theatrically pressing her hand to her chest. You abandon your family as if you were above us. Marina grinned. And when you took me out of the party. What did people think? I was just a server who got the address wrong? They left silently. In single file. The door slammed. Marina was left standing by the window. Looking out into the gray Manhattan street. Inside. There was no familiar crack through which the strength flowed. For the first time in years. She felt whole. She expected tears. Panic. Guilt. But instead. She felt like a heavy wet coat had been lifted from her shoulders. The emptiness of space. Air. Freedom to breathe. The phone beeped. A message from her cousin Lisa. With whom she had not spoken for 5 years. I know everything. Forgive me for keeping silent for so many years. Proud of you. You are strong. The first message in years that did not smell of a demand or reproach. Half a year passed. Autumn New York was wrapped in golden leaves and drizzling rain. Outside the office windows in Midtown. Fog hid the neighboring towers. They tried. Father wrote, return the money we invested in your education. Mother fell ill. Stopped calling, when Marina did not answer a single call. Mike blamed her for his latest startup going bankrupt. Irene sent voice messages with crying children. Aunt Marina abandoned us. Marina kept her boundaries. Every Wednesday she had a session with a therapist. Doctor. Sarah is a woman of about 60, with a soft voice and steely professional boundaries. You are not an ATM. Marina. You are a human being. Learn to be yourself. Not a child who is always at fault. Learn not to respond to manipulations right away. First. Answer yourself. What do I feel? What do I want? Flying monkeys. That's what Dr. Sarah called her relatives who suddenly remembered Marina's existence. Aunt Valerie called. Your mom is worried. Her blood pressure is spiking. A family friend texted. Maybe you did get carried away. Even an old professor from NYU suddenly decided to teach her a lesson about life. You can't do that to your family. Marina. There was only one answer. Polite. But precise. If you were silent when I was humiliated. Don't expect me to explain myself now. No more excuses. Not one. Forgive me for not being able to help. Business was flourishing. Without constant financial bleeding. Resources for development appeared. She opened a second office in Boston. She took 2 talented young analysts, Katie and Anthony, into her team. She gave an interview to Forbes about how to stop losing money on toxic family ties. The article blew up social media. There was no more family drainage. The money remained with her. Energy. 2. For the first time in many years. She could plan for the future without looking back at Mike's latest brilliant project. She found a private Reddit community. A support group for those who had severed financial ties with toxic relatives. Inga paid her parents' mortgage while she rented a studio. Steve was being robbed by his older brother, who invested his money in crypto schemes. Susan supported her mother, who spent everything on psychics. They met once a month. Without judgment. Without advice. They just shared. Marina heard it for the first time from other people. Not from a therapist. You have the right to your life. And she believed. Birthday. 35. For the first time. A holiday, according to her rules. Without let you pay. And then we'll pay you back. Without forced smiles and forced toasts. Her friend Natasha raised her glass. To celebrating with those who lift you up. Not those who pull you down. After that first message, she and Lisa started texting. It turned out they had a lot in common. They called me a stranger too. Lisa admitted over coffee in Soho. Only because I didn't run around mom and dad like Irene. They said I was cold. And you just didn't want to be convenient. These are different things. Unexpected guests came to the birthday party. Lisa with her husband and Aunt Margaret. Father's younger sister. Who had kept silent all these years. But demonstratively left the golden wedding right after Marina. Aunt Margaret handed over an old envelope. This is from Grandma Tamara. I wanted to give it to you earlier. But your mother said you weren't ready yet. Now you're ready. In the envelope was a letter on yellowed paper and a statement from a savings account. Marina. My granddaughter. You were my favorite. I didn't say it out loud so as not to jinx it. I knew you wouldn't break. Others needed my support every day. For you. Only the knowledge that I believe. This money is only yours. It is up to you to pass it on when someone stands up for themselves. 165美元. 000 had been saved for 7 years after grandmother's death. While Marina learned to choose herself. They waited. The back wave swept over the family after 8 months. The parents sold their vacation home in the Catskills. There was no one to pay for the maintenance. They moved to a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. Mike closed his LLC. The debts grew. The collection agencies called. Irene took out a loan in her name for the first time in her life for a new kitchen. Her photos disappeared from family albums. In general, there was silence in the WhatsApp group. As if she had never been there. Now we have 2 children. The mother told the neighbors. The family I was so eager for was a fantasy. Marina said during a session with Dr. Sarah. Their love was a contract. As long as you pay. They love. And what do you feel now? Relief and sadness for the family that never existed. A year later. A message came from father. Dry. Neutral. Maybe we'll meet, let's have coffee. What should I do, she asked the therapist. And what do you want? To understand if something has changed. But without illusions. Then meet. But on your terms. In a café? No more than half an hour. Not a word about money. The cafe was in Midtown. The parents looked older. Haggard. The conversation glided along the surface. The weather. Work. How are you? We miss you. Mother finally squeezed out. Me or my money? Mother lowered her eyes. Picked at her napkin. Father cleared his throat. Think about what it means to be a family. I think about it every day. There were no more words. They finished their coffee and went their separate ways. The family's power had disappeared like morning fog. Only Marina remained. Whole and real. New Year's Eve. Not in a $1 million restaurant. But in Inga's simple apartment in Brooklyn. String lights from Target. The smell of pizza. Sincere laughter. Inga announced her engagement. The ring was inexpensive. But the feeling was real. Steve brought the first collection of his stories. Self-published for now. But there is already an offer from a publishing house. Susan came with her 3-month-old son. Named Timothy after his grandfather. They love me just like that. Marina thought. Looking at her friends. Without conditions. Without bills. Without you have to. Snow swirled in the light of the street lamps outside the window. Manhattan was shining with New Year's lights. Marina went to the window. And it seemed to her that Grandma Tamara was standing next to her. Smiling. Part of Grandma's money went to the creation of the Tamara Kornilova Foundation. Scholarships for young women who had suffered from financial and emotional abuse in the family. The rest was waiting in the wings. Marina knew that the day would come when she would understand what to do with it. Lisa sent a text. You stood firm. Now you are a support for others. Grandma would be proud of you. The apartment was noisy. They laughed. Argued about Netflix shows. Played with little Timothy. It smelled of pizza and champagne. An ordinary New Year's for ordinary people. Marina looked at this festive mess and smiled. This is what a family looks like. Not the one you were born into. But the one you chose yourself. Story 2. The phone rang at the worst possible moment. I was just finishing a presentation to a major client when Olivia's name appeared on the screen. My sister rarely called during business hours. And I almost hung up. But something made me answer. Hello? Olivia. I'm in a meeting. Come back right now. My sister's voice was full of panic. She almost screamed. Something terrible has happened. The connection was broken. I stared at the darkened screen for a few seconds, feeling a chill run down my spine. In 37 years of knowing my sister, I had never heard such horror in her voice. Having apologized to my surprised colleagues, I gathered up the documents and ran out of the office. On the way to the parking garage, I tried to call. Olivia's phone went straight to voicemail. I called my husband Andrew, but he didn't answer. My mother-in-law Victoria was also unreachable. The 4-hour drive home to our suburb outside Denver seemed like an eternity. I was speeding, weaving between 18-wheelers on I-25, not paying attention to the honking of other drivers. The most terrible options were spinning in my head: a car accident, a house fire, a break-in. Maybe someone close to me had a heart attack or worse. When I finally pulled into my subdivision, my heart was pounding as if it wanted to jump out of my chest. Our 2-story colonial house was still standing. The windows were intact. No signs of fire or destruction. Strangely, Andrew's BMW was not in the driveway, although at this time he usually returned from his law firm. Olivia was waiting for me on the front porch. When I saw her face, I understood that no matter what had happened, this was really serious. My sister looked as if she had aged several years in one day. Her eyes were red from tears. Her hands were shaking. Thank God you came. She rushed to me. I didn't know what to do. Who to turn to? Olivia. Calm down. Tell me everything in order. What happened? I came, as you asked, to water your plants while you were away on your business trip. I have the spare key to the back door. I went in. And in the house. She hesitated, wiping away tears. Such things are happening there. Ira. Did I accidentally stumble upon something? Tell me. Let's go into the house. It's better if you see for yourself. We went up to the porch. Olivia took out a key ring with trembling hands. The house greeted us with the usual silence. But something about that silence was wrong. The air smelled of something unfamiliar. Not just of a closed room, but of something else. Where are we going? I asked. To Andrew's home office. But first. Olivia stopped by the living room. Look here. Everything in the living room was in its place. But on the coffee table lay a stack of documents I hadn't seen before. Nearby was Victoria's open lockbox. The same one she always kept in her bedroom under lock and key. I didn't touch anything, Olivia said quickly. Just looked inside. But there are photographs. Some certificates. Money. A lot of money. I came closer. Indeed. There were stacks of cash in the box, tied with rubber bands. At first glance, 100,000 Sube. Maybe more. Where did my mother-in-law get such sums? Her social security barely covered her basic needs. Among the money were old photographs. I took one. In the black and white photo, there was a young woman who looked strikingly like Victoria. But next to her stood a man in a military uniform. The signature on the back read, Gloria and Nicholas. 1978. Gloria. But my mother-in-law's name was Victoria. Olivia. Are you sure you didn't touch anything? I swear. I was just watering the peace lily in the living room. Accidentally bumped the table. The box fell and opened. Everything spilled out by itself. I looked through a few more photos. The same woman in all of them. But sometimes with different people in different places. And different signatures everywhere. Sometimes Gloria. Sometimes Susan. Sometimes no name at all. Just the date. That's not all, Olivia said quietly. It was worse in the office. Andrew's home office was on the second floor. In 15 years of marriage, I rarely went there. My husband didn't like it when someone touched his papers. He said he had important legal cases there. Confidential client information. The door was slightly ajar. Looking inside, I gasped. The desk was covered with documents. File folders with sheets of paper sticking out were lying on the floor. as if someone was looking for something specific in a hurry. Is everything scattered like this by itself? I asked my sister. No. It was exactly like this when I came in. But I found this. Olivia handed me a manila folder. On the cover was the seal of some organization and the inscription, Case File 847. Strictly confidential. Inside were medical certificates, psychiatrists' reports, and some official papers. The very first document made me go cold. A certificate of involuntary commitment to a psychiatric facility. The patient's name was Gloria Peterson. The date was 3 years ago. Olivia, do you understand what this means? My sister shook her head. But her face showed that she was afraid to hear the answer. I continued reading. Diagnosis paranoid schizophrenia. Tendency toward aggression. Danger to self and others. Legal guardians who signed the commitment documents: Andrew Morrison, son, and Irene Morrison, daughter-in-law. My signature on a document I had never seen. Ira. What is it? You turned pale as a sheet. I could not utter a word. The sheet of paper with the forged signature was shaking in my hands. Someone had imitated my handwriting very skillfully. But why? The next document shed light on the situation. A report on the condition of patient Gloria Peterson. She had been in a closed ward of Riverside Psychiatric Hospital for 3 years already. Her care was paid for by her son, my husband Andrew. But if the real mother-in-law was in a psychiatric hospital, then, who had been living in our house? Then I heard the sound of a car in the driveway. Olivia looked at me in fear. It's Andrew, she whispered. What are we going to do? I quickly shoved the documents back into the folder and put it back. My heart was pounding so loudly that it seemed to echo throughout the house. Let's act normal until we find out the whole truth. The front door slammed. We heard my husband's familiar footsteps. Ira. Are you home? Andrew's voice came from the entryway. I'm coming. I tried to make my voice sound normal. As I walked down the stairs, I thought about how I could have been so wrong about a person in 15 years of marriage. The husband I trusted with my life turned out to be capable of forging documents and deception. And the woman I considered my mother-in-law, and with whom I lived under the same roof for 3 years, who was she? Andrew stood in the hallway, hanging up his suit jacket. He looked as always tired after work. A little irritated by traffic. Nothing out of the ordinary. Hello. Honey? How was your business trip? Fine. I studied his face, trying to find signs of a lie. Where is Mom? He froze for a second, then continued hanging his jacket in the closet. Doctor's appointment. Routine checkup. She'll be back for dinner. Doctor's appointment at the psychiatric hospital. Olivia came to water the plants. I said cautiously. Oh. Yes. Good. Thank her. No sign of excitement. No reaction to the fact that my sister was in the house. Either he didn't know about the mess in the office, or he was a great actor. You didn't go into the office today, no? Why? I just asked. I needed time to think. Too many questions came at once. If the documents were real, then it turned out that Andrew had been deceiving me for 3 years, paying for the care of his real mother in the hospital, and had installed some other woman at home. But why? I'm going to take a shower, Andrew said. Long day in court. When he went upstairs, I motioned for Olivia to come into the kitchen. Listen. How long has Victoria been living with us? I whispered. Have you forgotten? She moved in with you 3 years ago after. Olivia stumbled. After she started having memory problems. You told me yourself. 3 years. Exactly as long as the real Gloria Peterson had been in the hospital. Don't you think she's changed over the years? Olivia thought. You know. Honestly. Yes. I remember, she used to be so sharp. Quick-tempered. But now she's gentler. I thought age does that. People change. Or people are exchanged for other people. The sound of water running could be heard. Andrew had turned on the shower. I had a few minutes to study the documents again. Olivia. Stay here. If you hear him coming out of the bathroom, let me know. I went up to the office and took out the folder. This time, I read more carefully. There were many medical reports in the file. But between them was another document, a contract for services. Social Care and Family Support Services. The contractor was some organization called Caring Families LLC. The client was Morrison. And the contract spoke about providing qualified personnel to care for elderly relatives at home. The amount made me whistle $5. $500 a month. It turned out that Victoria was a hired caregiver. En actrice. But why was such a complicated scheme needed? The answer was found at the very end of the folder, the last will and testament of Gloria Peterson Morrison. According to the document, all property, a house in downtown Denver, a cabin in Vail, bank accounts totaling over $800, 000, would go to her son, Andrew, only after her death. But if she was declared mentally incompetent, then management of the property would transfer to him immediately. Here it was. The motive: Andrew had placed his mother in a psychiatric hospital, achieved recognition of her incompetence with my forged signature, gained access to her money, and installed a fake mother-in-law in the house so that no one would ask unnecessary questions. But that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was that for 3 years I had lived with a complete stranger. Considering her family, I had shared my troubles with her, asked for advice, trusted her with the house when I was away. Who was she, and what else was my husband hiding from me? The noise of the water stopped. I quickly put the documents back in place and went downstairs. Olivia glanced anxiously between me and the stairs. "Everything okay?" she whispered. "We'll talk later. Take me to your place. We'll tell Andrew you're having problems with your computer." 10 minutes later, we were driving to my sister's apartment. In the car, I told her everything I'd learned. Olivia listened with her mouth open. "So this woman is a complete stranger and has been living with you for 3 years, it looks like it. But the most important question is, where is she? Now Andrew said she's at the doctor. But which one, and when will she return, and what if she doesn't return at all?" Olivia said quietly. "What if they realize they'd been exposed?" This thought hadn't occurred to me. Indeed. If Victoria simply disappeared, how would I prove that she was fake? No one would believe such a story. No. She has to return. They don't know that I found the documents. But doubts gnawed at me the whole way. What if they knew? What if the disorder in the office wasn't an accident, but traces of someone removing incriminating papers? We sat at Olivia's until late in the evening, discussing the situation. My sister suggested going straight to the police, but he hesitated. More concrete evidence was needed. "I'll go to that hospital tomorrow morning," I decided. "I have to see my real mother-in-law myself. And if Andrew suspects, I'll say I'm visiting a friend. I have valid reasons to be out." I got home around 10. Andrew met me with the question, "Where have you been?" I was worried. "At Olivia's. She asked for help with her laptop." I looked at him carefully. "And Mom still hasn't returned from her appointment. She's running late." There was no concern in his voice, which should be present in a person whose elderly mother disappears all day. More like irritation. As if plans had been disrupted. "Maybe I should call her," I suggested. I tried. No answer. Probably her phone died. Strange. She's usually punctual. Always calls if she's going to be late. Andrew shrugged and went back to watching CNN. And I went up to the bedroom, thinking about tomorrow. My intuition told me the worst was yet to come. In the morning, I woke up before Andrew. I was tormented by nightmares all night long. I saw a strange woman in the house, smiling mockingly. Then my husband, forging my signature on terrifying documents. There was practically no sleep. Andrew hurried to his law firm. Didn't even have time for his usual coffee and bagel. Before leaving, he turned to me. "If Mom comes back, tell her I was worried. Have her call me." "Okay. And if she doesn't come back," he froze for a second with his hand on the door handle. "She'll come back. Where else would she go?" There was such confidence in his voice, as if he knew exactly where she was. As soon as Andrew's BMW disappeared around the corner, I looked up the address of Riverside Psychiatric Hospital online. It was in Aurora, about an hour's drive. On the way, I thought about what I would say to the doctors. They don't let you see patients without proper authorization. The hospital building looked gloomy, gray concrete walls, security windows, a guard at the entrance. I went up to the reception desk, where a middle-aged woman in scrubs sat. "Hello. I would like to visit my mother-in-law, Gloria Peterson Morrison. And your daughter-in-law, Irene Morrison." The woman scrolled through her computer. "Oh. Yes. You're on the approved visitor list. But you haven't been here in a long time. Work. Business travel. I tried to look guilty. How is she doing? Stable condition. Though she's become more restless lately. Apparently. She misses her family. Restless. Could the real mother-in-law sense something was wrong? Can I see her? Of course. But I should warn you, she might not recognize you. She has memory issues. The nurse led me down long corridors, smelling of disinfectant and floor wax. The psychiatric ward had 4 elderly women. 2 to a room. I recognized one of them right away. Although she looked completely different from the home-based Victoria. The real Gloria Peterson was thinner. Her gray hair was unkempt. Her face gaunt. But the main thing was her eyes. They were filled with such sadness and hopelessness that my heart ached. Gloria. You have a visitor. The nurse said. The old woman slowly turned her head. Looked at me attentively. Then her face lit up. Irene. My dear. She tried to get up from the bed. Finally. I thought you had forgotten me completely. I was struck by how different her voice was from the voice of the woman who lived in our house. The real Gloria spoke more softly, with different inflections. How did you end up here? I asked. Sitting down next to her. I don't remember exactly. Andrew said that I needed treatment. That I was sick. Dangerous. Her eyes filled with tears. But I'm not crazy. I just sometimes forget things. Mix up dates. Is that an illness? Do you remember how long you've been here? 3 years already. Andrew promised to take me home as soon as I got better. But the doctors say I'm not improving. 3 years of loneliness in a hospital ward. 3 years while some strange woman slept in her bed. Used her things. Played the role of a loving mother-in-law. Gloria. Do you remember your house? What does it look like? Of course, a 2-story colonial with a white picket fence. An old apple tree grows in the backyard. And in the living room there's my favorite china cabinet. The one that belonged to my mother. We didn't have any china cabinet at home. So the fake mother-in-law didn't know all the details of real life. Gloria. And what do you remember about me? You're my Andrew's wife. You work at Wells Fargo. Often travel for business. Such a kind girl. Always supported me. She took my hand. Irene. Why do you visit so rarely? And why does Andrew never come? My heart was breaking with pity. This woman had waited 3 years for her son, who betrayed her for money. And what do the doctors say? Why are they keeping you here? First they talked about memory lapses. Then about aggression. But I never hurt anyone. Her voice was shaking. And recently one doctor said that I allegedly scared someone at home. Made threats. But this isn't true. Aggression. Threats, all this could have been fabricated to prolong the hospitalization. Or maybe Gloria really had suspected something before she was committed. Do you remember the last days at home before you came here? She was deep in thought. Her brow furrowed. Vaguely. I remember something strange was happening. I found strange things in the house. Someone was moving my furniture. One morning I woke up and there was someone else's coat hanging in my closet. Someone else's coat, yes. Beautiful. Expensive. But not mine. I asked Andrew. He said, I forgot that I bought it. But I remember I didn't buy it. It turned out that the substitution had begun even before the official hospitalization. The fake woman had gradually moved into the house. And the real mother-in-law was convinced she had memory problems. Gloria. Where are your documents? What documents? Passport? Will? House deed? Andrew took them. Said he'd keep them safe while I was getting treatment. Of course, he took them for safekeeping. Otherwise, how would he manage her property? The nurse looked into the room. Visiting hours are ending. Irene. Don't go. Gloria grabbed my hand. I missed you so much. When will you come again? Soon. He promised. Not knowing if I would be able to keep my word. And tell Andrew that I'm waiting for him. Have him take me home. I'm better now. On the drive back. I couldn't collect myself. The picture of the crime was becoming clearer. Andrew had gradually isolated his mother. Convinced her and those around her of her mental instability. Placed her in a hospital. And installed an actress in the house. All to gain access to the inheritance. But the most disgusting thing was that he had dragged me into this by forging my signature on the documents. If everything came to light, I would be considered an accomplice. An unpleasant surprise awaited me at home. Victoria herself was sitting in the living room. She looked fresh and rested, as if she had just returned from a spa weekend. Irene. My dear. She rose to meet me. How good that you're home. Andrew was so worried. I looked at her and couldn't believe that I had considered this woman family for 3 years. Now that I knew the truth, her falseness was obvious. Her gestures were too theatrical. Her care feigned. Where were you? Andrew said you were at the doctor's. Yes. The routine checkup took longer than expected. I had to stay overnight at the hospital for tests. Which hospital? She was confused for a second. Presbyterian divided by St. Joseph. Why? I was just curious. What kind of doctor saw you? Primary care physician. She turned to the window. Irene. You seem strange today. Did something happen? I decided to take a chance. No. I just missed you. Do you remember your house? Where you used to live? Before you moved in with us? Of course I remember. Tell me. What was it like? Ordinary. One-story ranch. With a garden. And where is your china cabinet now? What china cabinet? She looked at me in bewilderment. Well. The one your mother left you. The antique. Oh. Yes. The china cabinet. It was sold long ago. She was lying. The real Gloria remembered this cabinet. And this woman didn't even know it existed. I see. And when will Andrew arrive? He should be here any minute. I went up to my room. Citing fatigue, I needed to think about what to do next. Now I knew the truth. But how to prove it? And most importantly, was I ready to destroy my family for the sake of justice? An hour later, Andrew arrived. I heard him talking downstairs with his fake mother-in-law. But I couldn't make out the words. Then he came up to me. How are you? Mom told me you were acting strange today. Just tired. Lots of work. Where did you go today? Your car wasn't here this morning. My heart sank. He was watching me. I had to help a colleague with some paperwork. Took an Uber. I see. He sat on the edge of the bed. Ira. You've been kind of tense lately. Maybe you should see a doctor, like his mother. No. Everything's fine. Just work stress. Do you want to take a vacation? Let's go somewhere. Relax. And mom will stay at home or move in with a neighbor friend for a while. He wanted to take me away from home. Away from possible evidence. I'll think about it. That evening, I lay in bed, thinking about my life. 15 years of marriage that turned out to be a lie. A husband who was capable of betraying his own mother for money. And me? Who lived in a house with a complete stranger for 3 years. The most terrible thing was understanding that if I remained silent now, I would become an accomplice to this crime. The real Gloria would live out her days in a hospital ward. And her money would go to her traitor son. But if I spoke up, everything would collapse. The house. The family. The familiar life. The next day I made a decision. I went to a law office, taking with me photos of the documents that I had secretly taken on my phone the day before. Attorney Sandra Williams listened to my story, shaking her head. This is complicated. On one hand, there's fraud, document forgery, and unlawful commitment. On the other hand, it won't be easy to prove. We need more concrete evidence. What do you advise? First, you need to officially visit your mother-in-law at the hospital and record your conversation with her. Second, try to find out the real identity of the woman living in your house. Third, find financial records confirming your husband's payments. And if he suspects, then the evidence may disappear. You need to act quickly. I returned home with a firm plan. But the plans changed as soon as I opened the door. The house smelled of something burning. In the kitchen sink was a pile of charred paper. Victoria was washing dishes, humming softly. What was that? I asked, pointing to the ashes. Oh. Those were old unnecessary papers. Andrew asked me to sort through the documents in the office. She had destroyed the evidence at Andrew's request or on her own initiative. What documents? Oh. All sorts of things. Old bills. Medical records. Why keep what you don't need? I went up to the office. The desk was clean. The folders neatly organized. No traces of yesterday's mess, and no documents about the psychiatric hospital. They knew somehow understood that they had been exposed. That evening, Andrew came home late, and immediately suggested Ira. I've been thinking. Let's go on vacation. Tomorrow. I got us a reservation at a resort in Scottsdale. Tomorrow, so sudden. Why drag it out? You're tired. Stressed. You need rest. And work. I called your manager at Wells Fargo. He agreed to let you take 2 weeks. He had talked to my boss without my knowledge. And Mom will stay home. The neighbor will check on her. Everything was too prepared. Too calculated. He wanted to take me away while he and his accomplice figured something out. You know. Andrew. I changed my mind. I don't want to go anywhere right now. His face darkened. Why? I just don't want to. Ira. You've been acting strangely lately. What's going on? Nothing's happening. Then let's go on vacation. This isn't up for discussion. There was a threat in his voice. For the first time in 15 years. My husband spoke to me in a commanding tone. And if I don't want to, whether you want to or not, you're going. I'm tired of watching you stress yourself out. Now I finally understood that they were in a panic. They were afraid of being exposed and were ready to do anything to silence me. But I was also ready to do anything to restore justice. Okay. I said. Let's go tomorrow. Andrew looked at me in surprise. But apparently decided he had broken my resistance. Great. Pack your things. But I wasn't going to any resort. I didn't sleep that night. When Andrew fell asleep, I quietly got up and went into the living room. I took out my phone and called Olivia. Listen to me carefully. I whispered. Tomorrow morning. As soon as Andrew and I leave. Call the police. Tell them everything you know. I gave her all the information I had collected, including the address of the hospital. The plan was simple. While Andrew was taking me to the resort, Olivia would bring the police to the house. And on the way, I would find a way to escape and return. Ira. Are you sure? Asked my sister. Sure. There's no other way. In the morning, Andrew and I loaded our suitcases into the BMW. Victoria saw us off on the porch, waved goodbye and wished us a good vacation. Looking at her, I thought about how many more such grandmothers lived in other people's houses, playing the roles of dead or disappeared relatives. Well, my dear. Ready for vacation? Andrew asked. Starting the engine. Ready? I answered. But I was ready for something completely different. Andrew drove along Highway 6 toward the mountains. Although the direct route to Denver International Airport lay through downtown, I sat silent, looking out the window, thinking about the best way to escape. In my bag was a turned-on phone with Find My iPhone enabled. If something went wrong, Olivia would know where to look for me. You're very quiet, my husband noted. Don't worry. Rest will do you good. Andrew. Can I ask you a question? I decided to take a risk. What about your mother? Is she really your mother? The car swerved slightly. Andrew jerked the steering wheel. What nonsense, she's just been so different lately. As if she'd been replaced. She's getting older. Her memory is failing. You said so yourself. I did. But it's still strange. We drove another 10 miles in silence. Then Andrew turned onto a dirt road leading into the mountains. Is this the way to the airport? I asked. Although I already knew the answer. A shortcut. There couldn't be any airport in the Rockies. My heart started beating faster. The plan was changing apparently. Andrew had decided not to handle this in a civilized manner. Stop. I said. I feel carsick. Hold on. We'll be there soon. No. Right now. I feel sick. Andrew reluctantly pulled over. I jumped out of the car, pretending to vomit. I felt my phone in my pocket and quickly sent Olivia a text with my GPS coordinates and the word danger. Better? Andrew asked when I got back in the car. Yes. Thank you. We drove on. The mountain road was getting narrower. The car bounced over potholes. Finally, an abandoned cabin appeared ahead. We've arrived, Andrew said. Is this a resort? No. This is a place where we'll have a frank conversation. He got out and walked around to open my door. He had a small object in his hand that I didn't recognize at first. Get out. Ira. Andrew. What's going on? Something that should have happened long ago. You've become too curious. Now, I saw that he had a syringe in his hand. What is this? A sedative. You've needed a good long rest for a long time. I backed away. But the car was behind me. And Andrew was blocking the way to the road. You won't hurt me, I said, trying to speak calmly. I'm your wife. A wife who sticks her nose into other people's business. I warned you. Told you not to go into the office. Not to touch Mom's things. But you didn't listen. Andrew. I don't understand anything. Explain to me. You understand perfectly well. He took a step forward. Yesterday you went to the hospital. Today to the lawyer. Do you think I haven't been watching you? I'd probably been followed for a long time. Why are you doing this? For money? For the house? For a key at life? My mother was a sick woman who poisoned my life. And now, she wanted to poison yours too. She's not sick. I talked to her. She's paranoid and manipulative. Always has been. There was anger in Andrew's voice. Do you think it was easy to take such a step? And that woman, who lives in our house, Emma. A good actress. By the way. Handles the role perfectly. The actress used to work in community theater. Then in criminal enterprises. She specializes in family projects like ours. Many children get tired of difficult parents. Horror took my breath away. It turned out this was a whole industry. Substituting unwanted relatives. Andrew. This is a crime. The crime is leaving a sick old woman to suffer at home. I provided her with good care at the hospital, and a quiet life for us. A quiet life built on lees. Built on common sense. He took another step. The syringe in his hand looked ominous. So what now? Kill me. Why kill? Just a little injection. You'll fall asleep and wake up far away from here. In a good place where you'll be taken care of. In a hospital, like your mother's, similar. You really have become anxious lately. Everyone has noticed. Even Olivia said you were acting strangely. So the scenario had been worked out. The wife had gone crazy from stress. The husband had to hospitalize her. And he would stay at home with his mother. Who would confirm any version of events. And if I scream? Who will hear? The nearest house is 3 miles away. He was right. But I wasn't going to give up so easily. Andrew. Wait. Let's talk calmly. Maybe we can find a compromise. What compromise? I won't tell anyone. I'll keep quiet. Just don't touch me. It's too late. You've already said too much. To the lawyer. For example. Then I realized he was right. There was no turning back. And then I did the only thing I could. I darted to the side. Went around the car and ran toward the forest. Andrew rushed after me. Cursing. But I was faster. Branches lashed my face. Rocks and tree roots tangled under my feet. But I ran with all my might. I heard the cracking of branches behind me. Andrew was catching up. He was stronger and more enduring. But I knew these mountains better. As children, Olivia and I often hiked here with our parents. An old fire lookout tower was visible to the right. I turned toward it, hoping to find shelter. But tripped on a fallen log and fell. Andrew caught up with me. He was on top. Breathing heavily. Stop running. There's nowhere to go anyway. Don't come near me. Ira. I don't want to hurt you. Just let me give you the injection. And everything will be fine. Fine for whom? For you. For all of us. You'll be safe. I'll have peace. Mom will be looked after. And Emma will get paid well for playing her role. Everyone will be happy. He approached, holding the syringe ready. And then I heard a sound that was more beautiful than any music, the sirens of police cars. What is that? Andrew froze. Justice. I answered. The cars were approaching quickly. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight to indicate our location. A few minutes later, uniformed figures began to appear between the trees. Andrew realized the game was over. He threw down the syringe and raised his hands. Ira. You don't understand what you've done. Innocent people will suffer because of you. Innocent. I got up from the ground, brushing off my clothes. Are you talking about yourself and your accomplice? The police surrounded us. The lead officer approached me. Are you Irene Morrison? Yes. Are you okay? Yes. Everything happened quickly after that. Andrew's arrest. The trip to the police station. At home. The police detained Emma, who tried to escape through the back door but was intercepted. It turned out that Olivia had called the police the evening before after my call. They checked the hospital, talked to the real Gloria, and studied the documents. By morning, they had enough evidence for arrests. When Emma realized things were bad, she quickly gave up all her accomplices. It turned out that this scheme had been operating for several years. They found elderly people with valuable property, isolated them under the guise of treatment, and installed actors in their houses. Your husband is one of the organizers, the detective said. We've already identified 8 such cases. 8 families. 8 ruined lives. And what will happen to the real mother-in-law? She'll be transferred to a regular hospital for evaluation. Preliminary examination shows she has no serious mental disorders. We should be able to prove the diagnosis was fabricated. A week later, Gloria returned home. I met her at the hospital. She looked better, had gained weight. Her hair was styled. There was life in her eyes again. Irene. Thank you, she said, hugging me. You saved my life. I just did what I should have done long ago. And Andrew got 7 years. Fraud. Document forgery. False psychiatric commitment. She nodded sadly. I forgive him. He's my son. But I can't understand why. The house now belonged to Gloria. I helped her get her documents back, restore her rights to the property. It turned out Andrew had managed to sell the Vale cabin and spend most of the bank accounts. But we managed to save the house and some savings. Stay, she offered. The house is big. There's room for everyone. Thank you. But I think I need to start my life over. Without these walls that remember the deception. I bought a small condo in Lodo. The divorce was quick. Andrew didn't contest it, realizing his situation was already hopeless. Gloria often visited me. We became really close. Perhaps because we both experienced betrayal by the people we loved most. You know, she said once over coffee. I sometimes think, what if you hadn't come home that day? If Olivia hadn't stumbled upon those documents, I don't know. Maybe I would have lived in ignorance for the rest of my life. And don't you regret that everything fell apart? I thought about it. Do I really regret it? 15 years of marriage. A familiar life. A sense of security. It all turned out to be a mirage. But now I knew the truth. No. I answered honestly. Better bitter truth than sweet lies. 6 months later, a police officer came to my apartment and brought a letter from Andrew from the Federal Correctional Institution in Florence. He asked me to deliver it personally. He said. I hesitated for a long time whether to open the envelope. But curiosity won out. Ira. Andrew wrote. I know you hate me and have every right to. But I want you to understand. Mom really was sick. Not mentally, but with pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months to live. I wanted to spare you from watching her suffer. So I came up with this scheme. The real mom died a year ago at the hospital. Emma just maintained the illusion that everything was normal. I wanted what was best. The letter fell from my hands. Gloria, who now lived alone in the big house and was so happy to have returned to normal life, had died. But then who was this woman? I grabbed my phone and called an Uber. I needed to get to Gloria urgently and find out the truth. The house greeted me with silence. I opened the door with my key. I hadn't returned it. Gloria, I called. Are you home? No answer. But there was a note on the kitchen counter. Irene went to King Soopers. Back soon. Gee. I sat on the couch and tried to organize my thoughts. If Andrew wasn't lying in the letter, then it turned out the real Gloria really had died. And this woman I met at the hospital, and who now lived in this house. The sound of a key in the lock. A familiar figure entered the house. But now I looked at her with completely different eyes. Irene. What a surprise. The woman set down grocery bags. How are you? Fine. And you? Yes. Everything's good. Just lonely without you. The house is big. And I'm alone. I silently handed her Andrew's letter. She read it and sighed heavily. So he finally wrote. Who are you? Emma Valdez. Actress by training. con artist by circumstance. She sat across from me. Would you like some coffee? Let's talk like civilized people. I want the truth. The simple truth. Your husband hired me to play the role of his deceased mother so you wouldn't ask questions. The plan was for 1 year. Until he could finalize the inheritance. But you were so trusting and believed I was Andrew's real mother. And at the hospital, there was another actress at the hospital. Older. Who looked more like the real Gloria. We worked as a team. But she knew the family details. Andrew gave us a complete dossier. A professional operation. Very professional. But I missed some details. Like the china cabinet. I looked at this woman and didn't know what to feel. Anger. Disgust. Or strange admiration for her professionalism. And what did you feel? Living someone else's life. It was difficult at first. But then I got used to it. You treated me well. Took care of me. Andrew paid well. And the job wasn't the hardest pretending to be a kind grandmother. And your conscience, it bothered me. Especially when I saw how you worried about my health. Bought me medicine. Took me to doctors. You're a good person. Irene. Then why didn't you stop this performance? Where was I supposed to go? I have no real home. No family. No legitimate work. At least here I felt needed. There was sincerity in her words. Maybe she was a victim of circumstances too. What will you do now? I don't know. Probably disappear. Change my name? Move to another state. And if I don't press charges against you, she looked at me in surprise. Why wouldn't you? Because Andrew is the real villain here. He used me. You. And his mother. Emma was quiet. Thinking about my words. But I still participated in the deception. You participated. But now you can make it right. You'll testify against Andrew and his accomplices. And in return, I'll help you start an honest life. I have connections. I can find you legitimate work. She looked at me for a long time. Then nodded. Deal. The trial lasted 3 months. Emma testified against the entire criminal network. Thanks to her testimony, they found and freed 5 more elderly people who were being held in various facilities against their will. Andrew got 10 years. The ringleader got 15. The doctors involved in the scheme lost their licenses and faced criminal charges. Emma received a suspended sentence for her cooperation. I helped her get a job at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. It turned out she really was a talented actress. And I learned to live alone. The first months were hard, it seemed like my whole world had collapsed. But gradually I understood that loneliness is better than living in a beautiful lie. Sometimes I run into Emma in downtown Denver. We say hello? Ask about each other. A strange friendship between 2 women who were deceived by the same man. Do you regret discovering the truth? She asked once at a coffee shop, on 16th Street. No. I answered. I only regret that I didn't do it sooner. The truth is always more valuable than a beautiful lie. Even if that truth destroys your familiar world. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found it interesting, please share it with others so they might recognize the warning signs. Sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones capable of the greatest betrayal.